put billions and billions of dollars in investment into this country the way they did in Singapore. So I believe that in a funny way that President Ruto, even though I'm a strong critic, I think is best placed to deal with corruption because he knows everything about corruption in the government. He's been there for the last 30 years. And I believed firmly that not only do we need to deal with the structures of our corruption, we need to deal with the culture of corruption.
Thank you.
Last point. Debal, there are coups and failure of nation states everywhere in Africa today. There is a wind that is blowing across Africa of change by people who are under the age of 25, who are 80% of the population. Those military coup leaders in West Africa, Debal, are in their 30s. All of them. They have got massive support of the population in
Thank you. We'll
West
come to
Africa.
that. Thank you.
We have to be very careful about social stratification. Very careful.
Peter Kagwanja, just harking back to 1966 so we don't lose track to where we are and the resignation and the performance as well. Even when you have a heart to work but you're not really accommodated as well. You'll comment on that.
Yeah, I think we try to create a golden period in our history by harkening back to the 60s. But I think what is golden about those periods is that there were men and women of integrity who are ready to stand up and sacrifice their own lives for the sake of the greater good of being Kenyans. That's what Jaramogi was. From his struggle against colonialism and his struggle against post-colonial kind of cronyism, because what he was fighting against is political cronyism. Now, obviously, we have come a long way, and Jaramogi is part of that story of us as Kenyans basically trying to put a system of governance that serve the greater good of the Kenyan rather than the individual good. But there are some subterranean developments that tend to undermine all these processes. Our new constitution was a masterpiece in terms of separation of powers and in terms of locating where accountability is, because governance is about accountability. The single word that you can use to talk about who should govern or who should be held responsible is the concept of accountability. And there is only one person in this land on whom accountability rests, and that is one Dr. William Samoei Ruto. Why? Because that's our system, the way it is structured. Not by his choice, but by that view. He is the one person on whom accountability rests. Everybody else below him are advisors. Whether you are a cabinet minister, you are an advisor because you are supposed to know more than him, and therefore you add value to his life. Two, if you are a PS, the same, and so on. But what is emerging essentially is that if you have advisors who cannot advise you because they don't know what to tell you, then obviously you will fail, not on account of the system, but on account of who is in the system. Therefore, our primary responsibility at this age and time is to ensure that we put the best, our best as Kenyans, the most talented, the most gifted in positions of responsibility. Absolutely. And that is the only way we can become a major power. But look here, we have talked in the last 60 years about separation of powers. You know, parliament versus judiciary versus executive and all that. But we have never spoken about the separation of economic powers. And that's why we can never escape the dragon of corruption. What do we mean by separation of economic powers? The Gachadi report, I think it's a Gachadi report in the 60s, allowed civil servants to hang coats in the offices so they can go to run their own businesses. So they divided time between their positions in office and working for themselves. Two, they used the offices to accumulate. And therefore, everybody who comes to the government does not come to government to serve. We come to the government to accumulate wealth. And if you leave the government, like some of us have left, without making enough wealth. I remember somebody, a friend of mine, somewhere the day before yesterday, was asking, Professor, you are a very good person, but you don't make kanyamu. The Kikuyu talk about kanyamu. You know, kanyamu is supposed to be that undisclosed wealth, which people know of, but cannot account for. I mean, which I found obnoxious, because you get to the government to serve, not to serve yourself, not to enrich yourself. And therefore, I say this and finish. The problem with our society today is that we have so many political entrepreneurs that we are now competing on the art of entrepreneurship, political entrepreneurship. By political entrepreneurs, this is a very well-grounded concept in political science, is where somebody goes to the office in order to divert public resources to their own private resources. And you hone that art to the point that you become a hero in doing that. And I think the moment we deal with political entrepreneurship, then we are good to go. Because the problem we have here, I mean, we have traveled. We've been to America, we've been to China, we've been to Russia and to all these countries, we're going to Britain. The difference between them and us is that when they see a political entrepreneur, they shout him out and say, you cannot do that. So you cannot be a George Bush and you're also running so many companies when everybody is aware. You have to prove that you have forsaken all that and that you are not using the public office to enrich your companies and your whatever. So the new doctrine that we need in this country, in addition to the separation of powers, is the separation of economic powers. And we must be brave to do that. We have done that in some sectors.
Thank you.
We have done that in the military. In the military, you cannot, under the circumstances, be also an economic entrepreneur, unless we are at the very, very, very top. But in the normal soldier, we will not. The same case with the GSU and other forces that are in the barracks. So it is those who are outside there who have become economic entrepreneurs or political entrepreneurs, basically subverting our democracy.
All right, and we have a bill from Ishungo as well, trying to come up with the declaration of wealth that the MPs, or the legislators, will be now declaring that if you don't do so, then also a slap of 1 million shillings will be on your case. That has not worked before. We've seen the president even previously urging his cabinet secretaries, you know, the people from parastatals who are employed there to declare the wealth. Nothing really came to naught.
Well, Deba, I want to mention that Kenya has got very good professionals, but all that has been actually lost or put in the backyard. So that we have very good policies, very well written, very professional, but they are all on the shelves, and we do what we want to do. We don't follow those policies at all. We don't. And that's the reality. Yet they are very good, professionally written, and can meet our desires if need be. So that you find somebody who is out there, and then today you are pointing to a public office. He struggles first to get that public office. He struggles to get there. When he gets there, after a week, he forgets he's a public servant. He's a public servant. And from then on, he serves himself, his community, and his promise. And it becomes his office now. And he runs the way he wants.
Right.
He's unacceptable. He's unacceptable. You can't even go to him. You go to him, favors, looks at you. Why should you give me favors? You're serving me as a public servant. You're serving this country.
Yep.
Serve, don't give favors. Now, out of that then, you have mentioned it. We have wealth declaration. I feel that funk myself.
You feel them yourself?
I feel them myself, almost, for a long time. But we feel them. And once they are done, it's just for record, ticked. Mohammed has done it, Deba has done it, all taken, put on the shelf. And that's the end of it. If we were to use it fairly and properly, very few public servants will survive.
Very true.
Yes. If you use it fairly, they can't justify the source of what they have. So the option therefore is either justify it properly, you and your family, or simply leave office.
Indeed.
And none of us in those offices, because you have come to survive there, to run your own shows, is prepared to leave that office, yet you don't deliver. You're sitting there. Now, touching on that also is the fact that we have people in offices who can't do anything. They want to be told. Yes, you have everything written down for you. You know what's supposed to be done. Well documented. You're waiting for instructions from elsewhere. You fail to take responsibility. To me, yesterday was a good start. We need to give individuals in office, from the top all the way down, that authority to run your office. Once you have done that, we'll hold you accountable.
Right.
Once you have done that, we'll measure you. See how you and your staff, if you don't deliver, please leave that office for this country to get better citizens who can serve the citizenry. Thank you.
Right, so policies are being changed in favor of some of the cabinet secretaries. You know, they come up with policies to favor themselves.
Yes.
Underhanding dealings, they are being done here. And then we have this conflict of interest bill. Will it fly at this point that Kimani Ichung'wah is trying to steamroll through Parliament so that at least there's a bit of accountability? Conflict of interest once you enter office. You have shadowy companies.
I'd like to start with what the president's remarks. You know, I think that's how we started. And what the president is trying to tell his cabinet is that I gave you a job to do, not a desk to earn a salary. And unfortunately, that has been the approach. People think they've been given a job on a salary. Now, Prof mentioned some of these advanced countries. You see, if you're running for political office or you are about to be appointed in government, the first thing in Europe, in the United States, start thinking about is how can you shed your responsibilities when it comes to private business that you already have. Mm-hmm. In Kenya, when you know you're about to get into public office, you start thinking, how many companies can I establish so they become the sole supplier, you know, of the ministry or to the ministry. Yeah. So it's completely opposite in the way we approach it, because while one is thinking about public service, with us, we've turned public service into public predators. So instead of becoming public officers, we've actually become public predators. We want to steal. Now, will the bill fly? Whether the bill flies or works, what we know is based on history is that if it does, it's not given teeth by the system of the day, the government of the day, it will never really take off. So we have, when it comes to frameworks and policy frameworks on dealing with a number of things, Kenya on the continent is one of the most advanced ones in trying to develop them, and they're beautiful ones. But that is in theory. What we need is a culture that practices those things, that adopts those documents. How many recommendations, how many commissions have been formed in this country? And a lot of those results, products are just gathering dust, in the libraries and elsewhere. See, and so yes, it may be well-meaning, but good intentions do not always produce good results. And insofar as I think we are still stuck with the bad culture, where number one, we do not value the kind of things that we should value, like meritocracy, where we spite those people who want to hold us to account. We politicize and become very parochial, instead of actually, admitting, wrongdoing. And we use our communities to politicize, any time, for instance, we're being held to account. It's despicable. Right now, for instance, the country is going through some crisis. And anybody who doesn't admit that, then they're not either seeing or they probably live in a parallel universe. Now, any attempts to try and bridge that kind of chasm that is existing within the society, you have those people who are not interested at all in trying to do that. Let's be honest. Any noise and any chaos in a country drives away investment, reduces confidence in a country, hurts our profile, both in the region as well as internationally. It literally kills the dreams of millions. But it takes leaders within a country across the board to recognize the importance of unity and peace. to move in the direction where, say, how are we going to mediate our differences without shooting at each other, or without throwing stones at each other, or without destroying infrastructure, But what are we seeing? What noise are we hearing? Is extremities. You're having extreme views on this side and extreme views on that side, that we don't seem to be having a point. Now we're becoming a laughingstock. Now, unfortunately, I don't know whether people who are doing this, they actually read about the world. Because if they do, they did, then they're going to realize we are literally becoming a laughingstock. Because there is so much expectation of Kenya because of its position in the world, its role in the region, that when they see us behaving like confused toddlers, we become a laughingstock, then they start running away from us. And how are we going to solve societal and economic and social problems without actually being able to make sure that we have our kitchen in order?
Indeed. We need to wind up. We look at what is happening in the region as well.
Let me just make the last point. I think the great Niccolo Machiavelli said the best way to gauge the intelligence of a leader is to look at the people around him.
Great Machiavelli.
You now say,
Yeah.
all right, we leave it at that. Now, the United Nations chief has welcomed Kenya's offer to positively consider leading a multinational police force to help combat Haiti's gangs and improve security in the violence-racked Caribbean nation. Haiti's Prime Minister, Ariel Henry, urgently appealed last October for the immediate deployment of a specialized armed force in sufficient quantity to stop the gangs. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has been appealing unsuccessfully since then for a lead nation to help restore order to Latin America's most impoverished country. Kenya's foreign ministry said on Saturday that its offer included a commitment to send 1,000 police to help train and assist the Haitian National Police to restore normalcy in the country and protect strategic installations. The ministry said it was responding to a request from the Friends of Haiti group of nations. Kenya stands with persons of African descent across the world, including those in the Caribbean, and aligns with the African Union's diaspora policy and our own commitment to Pan-Africanism, and this case to reclaiming of the Atlantic crossing. This is what the ministry said. We just want to put this into perspective. Moving forward, how does it affect us? Let's just begin with Peter Kagwanja.
Now, first and foremost, let's look at the Haiti, so that we know whether we have interests there. Because I believe that our foreign policy is guided by two things. One, our commitment to values of humanity as large, that goes beyond our local national interests. And second, our national interests. Our strategy is pragmatism. That is, you don't go there, to export an ideology or share something. Haiti has meaning to the African people, to the people of African descent, which is that it was the first country to wage war against the colonial power and to win. And therefore, it has faced the wrath of the entire colonial world, because its success must not be around to thrive. And therefore, for centuries, since the Black Jacobins, Haiti has paid the price of external destabilization, punishment of these leaders, imposition of leaders who the Haitians don't deserve. And therefore, it has been a kind of an epitome of what you'd call an unstable, failed state, but a state all the same. So that is the broader context in the global sense, that nobody will allow Haiti to succeed, because if Haiti succeeds, then it sets a bad example to the colonized world, from China to the Caribbean. And the immediate crisis has come since 2018. And I think from 2018, there was power tussle, similar to what we are having in Kenya, protests against the cost of fuel. Protests against the largely cost of fuel, but added to that, the cost of living, as we are saying here. And there has been contestation between the leader who have been there, called Jovenel Moise, and the opposition leader, until Jovenel was assassinated. Moise was assassinated, and that threw Haiti to a completely new crisis. And as we speak now, I think it's spear against spear, gun against gun, bro against bro in Haiti, sword against sword in Haiti. It's almost anarchy. And it's in this context. And remember, already we have a standing UN peacekeeping in that country, which has been there for donkey years. We have other bodies that are intervening, like the Southern American states, the equivalent of the African Union. They are supposed also to be there. Yet, Haiti is in the situation it is. For Kenyans, what is in it for us to go to Haiti? It's our Pan-African orientation. Kenya discovered in 2021 that our only power, the only power we can tap into to govern the world or to share our governance with the world is Pan-Africanism. Because Kenya went to the United Nations Security Council as a non-permanent member through the voting of others. When other parochial nationalism, or what we call ethno-nationalisms, were invoked, whether it's Francophone, whether it is Islamic, or any other, Kenya found itself as a huge disadvantage. And therefore, the only galvanizing force we had was Pan-Africanism. So I can understand why we must accept such an invitation. The question is, are we prepared for this kind of invitation? I know 1,000 police officers is a tenth of what we are recruiting per year. I think we are recruiting 10,000. So it's more. But do we understand Haiti and its terrain so as we accept to send our troops and also to lead the multinational force? And that harkens back to what I was saying the other day about our presence in Congo, in Sudan, in Ethiopia, and elsewhere. We need to have knowledge of these countries where we are intervening, because we may fail, not because we don't have the will, but we don't have the knowledge.
Yes.
All right.
Let me just add one point to that. Half in the 19th century, half of the budget of the French Republic came from Haiti, from the sugar canes of Haiti.
Yeah.
Half the economy of France. The United States has invaded that country countless times. Haiti has been set up to fail. Do you know why it has been set up to fail? Because it was the first successful revolution against empire.
Yeah.
The first, and you know, there's a fortress about that's one of the first fortresses in the Western Hemisphere. Toussaint L'Ouverture, the great Toussaint L'Ouverture, from Angola here, from Angola. And his deputy, Dessalines, defeated Napoleon Bonaparte. So the deep past of Haiti and its connection to the Europeans, is part of this nexus of the world system that today, is making our continent to be set up for failure, no matter what political leader in this country gets up to try and fix the economy. Here at the Ministry of Finance, next to Mr. Thuge, the central bank, and there's an International Monetary Fund person. The International Monetary Fund, tells you that, gives you that Liberian saying, you know, it's self-evident that we have to eat rice, but the rice is not there anymore. So we have to really, really change. I give it to my general. I don't want to take too much time.
Right. So maybe if I may ask you also, Brigadier General, when we look at the UN ratio of police that is required, one police maybe to a citizenry, Kenya stands, the last time I checked, to 1 to 400?
Very good.
Yeah.
Approximately there.
Yes, we
a ballpark figure, but that one is way below to what actually the United Nations is asking, because a lot of these policemen also are being deployed to be the security personnel of who is who in the society here. So do you think 1,000 troops going also to Haiti, it's a laudable move?
But I want to maybe pick also a bit on history and mention that Haiti has had its own challenges, both man-made and natural. that despite this crisis all over, in the early 2000s, we had the earthquake, which apparently killed a number of UN staff, including a good friend, the SRSG. He lost his life there in that earthquake. And the mission went on and continued. Then come about 2017, the UN mission in MINUSTA, actually before that, was downsized from a UN peacekeeping mission to much more of a policing mission, where it was much more of trying to allow the government to run their show, while the UN helps in policing only, not really armed forces and all that. And therefore the presence was not armed forces, but much more of police. Then we saw in 2017, that again, unfortunate incident, where the people claimed that the outbreak of cholera in Haiti was linked or brought in by the UN. And they said the UN must leave. They said the UN must leave, and indeed, I do know a number did leave. And since then, the numbers of UN in Haiti has been small. Now, because of that, therefore, you find a population that's always in riots, a population that's difficult to govern, and that requires a lot of order and assistance. A population that's almost always challenging government in terms of believing. As somebody said, the situation where Haiti has been destined to be almost in chaos, to reflect that the black can't really govern themselves in that regard. What's happening now is the fact that out of that disorganization, it has been found that the Haiti police cannot really take care of the strategic assets. And the request, therefore, coming not from the UN from the outset, the request is coming from Friends of Haiti. And the request is that international policy be provided across the world to help. This is the Friends of the US, the Canada, and the neighbors who are saying, let's assist. However, we must remember that when that action is to be implemented, it must again seek and get a UN authority. It has to go back to the UN. Now we know the UN will approve because in terms of funding, the partners are going to fund that operation, making it indeed a very good way to go. Now, what does it mean for Kenya? Number one, and my friend Dr. Kanija said this, that inside Kenya, we have issues ourselves in terms of even professionals not performing. Outside in the world, Kenyans stand out. Kenyans stand out. I've served out there in the UN. Kenyans stand out. They perform the high standards. They are promoted based on merit, and they perform. When they come back here, what goes on? What goes wrong? Never understand. Even the good ones coming back here don't succeed. Now, because of that international image, out there, Kenya is respected, despite our issues internally here. In peacekeeping, we have done very well. In policing outside there, we have done very well. And therefore, the request has come in. Not to minister saying, we are going. No, let's get this right. We have been requested to provide the policemen. And the request came in to our government. And it's not fair for the government to turn down that offer, despite our challenges, because we performed. We were all over the world in peacekeeping. The police were in Cambodia, did very well. In the neighboring countries, they've done very well. So our performance out there is appreciated. The request has come that we provide 1,000 policemen and also, in addition, provide leadership. I feel that the government is just fair to respond appropriately. Give them, because I know those policemen out there and the leadership will deliver. And therefore, full support this endeavor. And the government takes it seriously and does meet this need. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Dr. Kanenje.
I agree with most of the sentiments expressed by General here and my colleagues on the table. That request is in recognition of Kenya's role, but also Kenya's credibility, even in previous peacekeeping missions, and Kenya's professionalism out there. And I think the president is probably, well advised to honor, that kind of request. Not to mention, also there are a few perks that will come with it, that we may not otherwise, of course, have gotten. But then it creates a culture where, of course, Kenya is looked at, a lot more favorably, internationally. But it's also in line with our Pan-African agenda. And I agree with Professor. When we were trying to bid for the United Nations Security Council, we faced a lot of resistance. Now, on the continent, the biggest challenger was actually Djibouti. And Djibouti, while it may appear to have been small, it wasn't that small at all, in part because it has established alliances that made it extremely difficult. You know, for instance, is a member of the Organization of Islamic, countries, is a francophone country, and name it, is part of the Arab League, and so it had a lot of advantages. But all we could lean on is our Pan-African agenda, as well as peacekeeping, especially when we're lobbying ourselves, from around the world. I think you saw the former president start traveling, including to the Caribbean countries, to get that. And so we're communicating that we are a very Pan-African country. And many may disagree with the president's perhaps internal agenda, but few can disagree that the president has been very Pan-Africanist in orientation, to the extent that he's become increasingly popular on the continent, actually, right now. Now, one of the things that is going to be critical, Haiti is a country that's more than 200 years of independence. The first Black Republic in 1812. Yet is one of the poorest countries in the world, and by far the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It's plagued by challenges. This is a country that's about a quarter the size of Turkana County, about 27,000 square kilometers, about 11 million people. At the time of the earthquake in 2009, they were about 9 million or less, but there was 300,000 people. Think about that. 300,000 people. If you put in percentage, that's a significant number. So it has had a lot of issues, and right now it's pretty much become a gangs state. Port-au-Prince is ruled by gangs. Now, while Kenya has accepted the leadership, it's going to be important to find a way in which Kenya is also going to work with other countries. Now, our police may have to take a crash course in French, because they speak French and Creole there. I can speak a little Creole because of my many years of experience with the Haitian communities. But the language, of course, is going to be one of the challenges that we're going to face, and therefore it's going to be helpful, perhaps, if we also have others who can speak French, to be part of the team. But to the extent that it informs and is part of Kenya's general foreign policy, but also Kenya's approach to international relations, it is something important. At the time when we are trying to increase our own agency and our own role in the region, in the world, I think it's timely, but of course we have to make sure that we're sufficiently prepared, because also within the region we are facing a lot of challenges, not just in the immediate neighborhood, but even in the larger neighborhood, as you can see.
All right, so we have Brigadier thinks that the police here, they're actually up to scratch as far as this deployment is concerned. People have been raising questions. I could see the comments saying, why do we know where we're sending these people? The country of voodoo, and the country of the cartels, the narcotics, what do we call the Pablo Escobars. I'm trying to be very cautious as well. The Pablo Escobars, so to speak, fighting them as well. Will we be able to measure in terms of our training?
That is blasphemy. Haiti is not exactly a country with the kind of Pablo Escobar type of people. They don't do a lot of narco there. It's just that it has suffered from a state of lawlessness for so long. There is very little middle class in Haiti. You have the rich and you have the poor. So if you look at the GDP, it will be very misleading. And because there is no critical mass when it comes to the middle class, it is so hard to be able to pacify a country. You always need a size of middle class to actually create order. But when you're having extremely poor people and then the wealthy, that kind of discrepancy, is a recipe for disaster. But Kenya's intervention is timely, but of course we have to be careful and we have to ensure that other people come on board. Good thing the United States is the one going to reach the resolution. So I think it may invest itself in ensuring that perhaps that mission succeeds.
But since this call was made, and we've seen other countries have not been responding to this particular call that was being made, if we could get deployment of the troops to Haiti, We've seen Kenya now, followed by Bahamas. Why do you think there was a raising of hesitation as far as sending troops to Haiti is concerned?
Well, I'm very suspicious of this thing. As you know, I tend to look at things from an alternative view. But on the one side, my Pan-African instincts, which is part of the African diaspora, cries out and says, yes, we need to help Haiti. In fact, it's a shame that Africa and the Caribbean organizations have not been able to put their feelings where their mouth is and to invest in Haiti. I think there should be a Haiti fund across our continent, whatever meager resources we have, and plus the Caribbeans, to try and make sure that we try and help this country, which is the most, has got the most outstanding history as far as issue of empire, anti-colonialism, and the history of the Africans in the diaspora. There is no other nation on earth that has got a black population that has a history like Haiti. But then on the other side, I know that the United Nations went there, and there were massive allegations of rape. There were massive allegations of corruption. There was widespread cholera across the country. The state functions stopped. At the last minute, President Obama organized a massive aid lift to Haiti. Haiti has been part of the mission civilisatrice of the French Republic. It has been looted. The slaves who are there are the ones who cut the sugarcane that built the economy of France. It funded the Napoleonic Wars. But I am very happy, as my panelists are, about sending policemen to go and help this nation stand up on its feet. But I hope that the government does not take advantage of going to train riot police and extra military police over there so that they can have experience in the next demonstration that comes to Nairobi. This is my suspicion. I am going to put that suspicion aside and look at the positive value of helping Haiti. But nonetheless, I have to put it on the record, because part of the record is my children are watching me, and they're coming back to this country after they graduate, and they want to be part of the process of this country. And they're going to hold their father accountable for what he says. So I firmly believe that if the instinct of this was positive in helping the Haitian people, it should be an African Union issue. It shouldn't only be a Kenyan issue. Kenya should go to the African Union and ask for us to help in countries that are also French-speaking, so that we can go there. Our country there, South Africa, that is sleeping on the job, has a fleet of ships, boats, and the professional capacity to help us go and help Haiti. There is no other more important issue than helping the people of Haiti, because of their contribution to the struggle of black nationalism in Africa.
Should that be the structure, that you should go through the AU? We've seen Bahamas, they've gone also solely as an island, as a country.
I think it's not there, that we go through the AU. Sorry? But I want to add one more angle to this deployment, in the sense that this is not a normal deployment. We have sent our police out to peacekeeping for quite a while now, but you have sent them as individual police officers. They go and work alone or with other policemen from other countries. In this case, we requested to send what we call formed police unit, the equivalent of our GSU. Our GSU are very professional, and their function, as requested, is two. Number one is the protection of strategic assets of the government. And number two, on the sides, is training. Why do that? So that we can relieve the Haitian police to go and deal with their people on the streets and all that. In terms of security, that's not a function for this group. This group is there to provide that protection for strategic assets, allow the Haiti to understand each other, to go and deal with their people. To me, it is unique. It's the first time, actually, we are sending, as Kenya, a formed police unit. We've never done that before. So because of that, the experience, and I believe maybe most of them should come from the GSU, mostly, or those who are associated with them, really should make us stand out in terms of how we do things. Because I know, in spite of changes in the police system, our GSU has stood out all along, and they are doing very well. And I believe if they are sent, they'll make us very proud of that contribution.
All right, let's finalize with Professor Kagwanja on this.
First and foremost, I think you raised the question of whether we meet the UN standard of, the ratio.
The threshold.
The threshold. I think no country in the world, constantly meet this threshold. The threshold of the UN is one police officer to 450 citizens, which is a very high, standard. You need to have a lot of resources and so on. If you compare us in Kenya, we have 1,150. One soldier to 1,150 citizens. We are the best performing compared, for example, with Tanzania, which has 1,298, or compared to Ghana, which has 1,200. Therefore, I think one of the reasons why they might have singled out Kenya is because in terms of our policing, we are among the top in the world in that regard. And as I said, this is just 1/10. 1,000 police officers is about 1/10 of what we recruit or what is recruited per year. So it's a small group. But it is not the numbers that are important. It is the mission that we are having. We also need to explore another area of thinking, that Kenya is now considered a regional power. And as a regional power, we are supposed to dispense public goods. And among the public goods we are dispensing is security of the world. And there's a quid pro quo, what we get in return. And what we get in return is to get our boys and girls getting positions in the international bureaucracy. So for our troops to go, it's not very wise to state it in a public television, but as a public intellectual, it's good to mention this, that we deserve a space in the international bureaucracy to deal with our unemployment. Sooner or later, if we continue to train 10,000, in a number of years, we are going to find ourselves stopping training as we did with the teachers. We continue to train, and you say you cannot guarantee them employment. So you only train what you can guarantee employment in the security sector. And how do we deal with this? India is dealing with it by basically, with the UN. Look at the big countries. The biggest contributor of peacekeepers is China, as the leading UN Security Council group. Then there's India, there is Pakistan. Now, we need to begin thinking about this as an area where we can dispense our public goods, but at the same time get integrated into the international bureaucracy. The ratio of Kenyans in the United Nations, in the World Bank, in other international organizations, compared to the service we are giving to the world, is so little. So we need to start claiming our space. Even when you go to the UN, to the African Union, I used to complain about this. There was only one lawyer, Nzioka, for many years. And at the same time, President Uhuru Kenyatta would get a whole check of $1 million and give it freely to the UN, to the African Union, in order to make it functional. Yet that $1 million check is not catered for by the proportionate or commensurate number of Kenyans who are employed within the UN. You find it's the West Africans, the Malians, the others who are employed, the Kenyans are few. So look at that 1,000 troops as an example of what we should be doing globally. If you take 1,000 troops to every flash point in the world, we have created employment for our young men and women.
Thank you.
Why not?
Right, let's wrap it up at that. We'll take a short break right now. When we come back, we look at Sonko, who has been charged with fomenting insurrection. We're not talking about our Sonko here, we're talking about the Sonko in Senegal, and how also the